Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and Spider-Man Far From Home swung the MCU to a bright future where no one can believe anything ever. With this being the final film of our Infinity Saga Rewatch series, let us break down all the subtle visual details and Easter eggs we missed in past reviews to explore the endless lengths Mysterio and this film as a whole so effectively messed with our heads. The opening scene immediately hits us with a ton of lies. The monster that destroyed this Mexican town isn't Sandman, as you might deduce from that faux Easter egg on the license plate 463 for Spider-Man 4, released in 1963, the debut of Sandman Flint Marko, because director Jon Watts knew that we would look at the license plates after Homecoming, so now 463 is just a misdirect that he deliberately included in trailer footage even. Even Nick Fury and Maria Hill are lies. They're actually the Skrulls, Talos and Soren, hinted at by Hill's line here.
Nick, this was a tragedy, but it's not why we're here.
In Captain Marvel, Fury clarified that no one calls him Nick.
Everybody calls me Fury. Not Nicholas, not Joseph, not Nick. Just Fury.
And that is how he first spotted Talos.
Excellent work, Nicholas.
Later in this movie, Hill calls Fury Nick again.
Top secret information.
Nick, satellites are picking up an EM pulse.
Now sure, people have called Fury Nick plenty of other times in the MCU, and maybe Hill is just more familiar with him. But these are the first prominent violations of the rule after it was established in Captain Marvel. Like, we can't fault past movies for not knowing Captain Marvel would set that rule in the future, but Far From Home is going out of its way to violate it now. And Quentin Beck arrives.
You don't want any part of this.
Yeah, he always tells them to stay back and let him be the hero.
We should get somewhere safe, Fury. I don't see this ending well.
I appreciate your concern, but I never leave my men behind.
Because Fury and Talos know that strength comes from cooperation, teamwork, not one man alone trying to fix things. The Midtown Morning News blip recap shows the moment the marching band undusted, and I love how the basketball gets passed directly into the tuba and skews its note. In the news, there's a boom in the shot, and we get Betty's eyeline fail.
As we draw this year to a close, it's time to move on to a new phase of our lives.
One of the few nods to Marvel moving on to Phase 4. Some people move on, but not YouTube channels trying to make content despite Marvel production delays. Peter and Ed's classroom is filled with Iron Man tribute art, like the murals that keep reappearing throughout this movie, constantly reminding Peter that this is all a feud over Stark's legacy. Does Stark's tech go to the beneficiary he chose despite him being kind of a dope? Or should it go to smarter adults who worked their asses off for it, but, you know, are kind of evil? Happy's big check is from Stark Industries, signed by Pepper Potts, suggesting the company is still active. But also visible here is an old wrestling poster listing Crusher Hogan, the wrestler Peter tested his powers against in the comics, but also Bonesaw McGraw, the Raimi movie version of that character played by Macho Man Randy Savage.
I got you for 3 minutes. 3 minutes of play time.
Ooh yeah. One of a few very interesting tie-ins between the MCU and the Raimiverse that I pray gets whipped together in a Spider-Verse. One of Spider-Man's fans holds up the photo of Peter coming out of the porta potty, the same one that the news used as a stock photo of him in Homecoming. Peter's phone screen is cracked again, not as spider-webby as the end of Homecoming, but he's still got some of that web slinging in him. And his suitcase is labeled BFP, belonging to his uncle, Ben Parker. May hits him with a banana.
Hungry? So sorry. I thought that you could sense that with your Peter tingle.
Peter's spidey sense is still recovering from the trauma of him sensing his dusting in Infinity War.
Is it Stark? I don't feel so good.
Peter is flying blind in this movie, especially vulnerable to the deeper theme of Far From Home, the danger of misperception. Aunt May haunts him with this shame, forcing Peter to carry it with him to Europe. Also notice how Peter taped over his light switch. He's forcing it to stay on always because it's connected to the outlet below. Notice how he runs all of his stuff through that power strip, and the light switch has to stay on to keep his Iron Spider charger running. That energy bill must be rough. Peter's in-flight movie selections include The Snap, directed by Paul Greengrass, suggesting a Captain Phillips or United 93 style take on the the events of Infinity War, Finding Wakanda, Huntin' Hydra, and Nova, directed by Thor's favorite astrophysicist and banned from Stonehenge, Dr. Erik Selvig. There's also a title called Heart of Iron, the Tony Stark story, which I have wondered could be a nod to Ironheart, Riri Williams, MIT student and Stark follower who might have been in the crowd for that barf presentation. When Ned plays Beast Slayers, his avatar looks like him, and he wins by using the halberd weapon. Later in the Tower of London, he corrects Happy regarding the same kind of weapon.
Give me the spear. That's a halberd.
In Venice, the kids take a selfie. Pizza time, a nod to Peter Parker as the delivery guy in Raimi's Spider-Man 2.
Pizza time.
Mr. Harrington drops his phone. Actually, the end credits show the last photo taken as he dropped it, which might have been automatic because, he wasn't holding it, or maybe a drone took the photo. And again, Mysterio's deception is everywhere. I pointed out last year how Quentin Beck hides in plain sight as a tourist behind Peter, and later creeping behind Peter and MJ is Gooderman, Team Mysterio's screenwriter, Goots. Mysterio's water monster rises from drones in the canals, but Mysterio himself first appears literally out of thin air, since he's just a projection. When Peter holds the bell tower from falling, he's keeping it from crushing an orphanage. Oh, not the orphans, especially since, Peter is one. Flash says,
BuzzFeed says there's a sailor named Morris Bench who was exposed to an experimental underwater generator and got hydro powers.
Maury Bench is the classic comics origin of Spidey villain Hydro Man, but MJ is right to tell him not to believe everything he reads on the internet. A movie about misperception. But MJ is just as prone to conspiracy theories because she says this about Eiffel Tower.
I read it was secretly built as a mind control antenna to create an army of the insane.
A bit of foreshadowing setting up how Mysterio will use Eiffel Tower to try to control Peter's mind and drive him insane. Talos/Fury drops another clue about his off-world origin.
Mr. Beck is from Earth, just not yours.
A line that was changed from ours in promotional footage.
Beck is from Earth, just not ours.
And then Beck explains,
This is Earth, Dimension 616. I'm from Earth 833.
Earth 616 is the main Marvel Comics universe. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is technically Earth 199999. Earth 833 is the comics universe home to Spider UK. Maybe a nod to Peter's battles in London in the final act of this movie. The holo projection forms this halo around Beck's head, making the shape of his fishbowl-style helmet. They also show mythological figures from real human history that Beck says the elementals were based on, the way Thor was rooted in human Norse mythology. Of course, Beck's story is bullshit, but just like the multiverse is still a real thing in the Marvel world, these actual mythological figures could be linked with the upcoming Eternals. The Venice street names are all nods to Spider-Man comics writers and artists. Protea di G. Condeo is for Jerry Conway, who gave us the death of Gwen Stacy. Bienvenido is for Brian Michael Bendis, Miles Morales co-creator, longtime comics writer. Di Michelinio is for David Michelini, Venom creator. Campo de R. Sterno is for Roger Stern, creator of Hobgoblin. And Calle de Sloto is for Spider-Man writer Dan Slott. Peter puts on Tony's glasses, similar to the frames Tony wore in Infinity War, and links with Edith. And this key prop of the movie is another example of the misperception motif. Peter, flying blind, wants the insight Tony Stark had, but he has not yet proven himself worthy to inherit that vision. Edith shows everyone the screens. Mr. Dell is looking up witchcraft after suspecting Mysterio to be witch-related. Mr. Harrington is texting someone finally some good luck. Oh, poor guy. Another student texts his mom for more money. Dimitri's is encrypted. Brad is searching for romantic spots in Prague, just like Peter was doing moments earlier. And Flash texts that he hasn't heard from his parents. And at the end of the movie, they don't pick him up from the airport. We've made a couple theories about that, but really, I just think he could just be rich and his parents don't care about him. Peter gets a new stealth suit, which he later describes as
A little tight around the old web shooter.
Parker.
Well, since this suit came from Fury/Talos, and since that unit was infiltrated by Team Mysterio, it is possible that Mysterio could have corrupted the suit to make Peter easier to manipulate. If you think about it, it is a stealth suit. Certainly sets up Mysterio to be the flashier hero and have all the cameras point to him. And also worth noting that Peter has to lose this suit and make his own new suit in order to defeat Mysterio in the end of the movie. When Peter distracts everyone on the bus away from him jumping up to take out the drone, MJ has not leaned over to look out the window, so Peter would be in her eye line and notice how her suspicious eye is directly on him when he lands. And I didn't notice this before, he takes out the drone by firing a web grenade past it, shooting the cliffside so that another web strings forward to catch a drone and yank it back. In Prague, Beck gives Peter a rooftop heart-to-heart, just like Tony Stark did for him on a rooftop in Homecoming, tempting Peter to share those Stark legacy frames with Quentin Beck, while at the same time, frames are also used to lure Peter back to his teenage life, with MJ offering to share opera binoculars with him, even though they're definitely seated close enough to the stage to need opera glasses. Mysterio's fire elemental attacks and Fury and Hill drive up in a car with the license plate ASM 28965, a nod to the comic Amazing Spider-Man released in September 1965, the debut of Molten Man, which is similar to this elemental monster. But Mysterio's not expecting them to roll up so soon, so when they pass in front of Beck's laser, bullet holes appear in the windshield, since the drones are using bullets and pulse blasts to create damage. Mysterio fakes a dramatic sacrifice right in front of Peter, making a power-up and a snap gesture, recreating Tony's I am Iron Man moment. And that leads to this bar, which is all set up to deceive Peter. In fact, in the opening establishing shot, you can see William Ginter-Riva peering out at us from under the taps. Like if you happen to be looking at that corner of the screen and remembered Peter Billingsley was in Iron Man 1
with a box of scraps,
you'd be like, whoa, wait? And the music that's playing is Town Called Malice by The Jam, lyrics describing the feeling of missed opportunity, being stuck in a bad place instead of living the life you want, reminding Peter how he is being forced to grow up and be an Avenger instead of living his desired life as a teenager. Team Mysterio also strategically placed military medals and a photo of glasses right over Beck's shoulder to subliminally trick Peter into seeing Beck as a noble soldier who deserves the Edith glasses. And then another team member pickpockets Peter to make him think he carelessly dropped the glasses.
Oh my god, thank you so much.
What are those? Are those the
Edith glasses, yeah.
They were just on the floor?
So we learned that Beck invented barf, which in Civil War, Tony described as
an extremely costly method of hijacking the hippocampus.
Yeah, it hijacks the brain, justifying how these drones are so deceptive. Actually, in the next episode of The Big Question, Tommy and I break down the full functionality and implications of Mysterio's tech. You're gonna wanna check it out. Team Mysterio's victory plays out over a vigil mural of Iron Man with Tony Stark's face inlaid inside it. A reminder that it's not the suit, it's the man inside the suit. Peter just handed off that legacy to the worst person, idiot. I love how after Peter reveals himself to MJ, the camera pans around to reveal Ned shocked in the corner, just like the gag in Homecoming when Ned found out about Peter himself. Beck wears a mocap suit, reminding us that this whole group is really just a filmmaking crew. Beck is the lead actor and director. Box Scraps William is the cinematographer and visual effects artist. Goots is the screenwriter. Victoria stages these electrical impulses in specific areas to trick satellites, so she's kind of the location manager. And Janice is the wardrobe designer, and Little Miss Pickpocket is your AMC A-list staff. Fury picks up Peter in a car tagged MTU 83779, a nod to Marvel Team Up issue 83, released in July 1979, which teams up Nick Fury and Peter Parker, but again, it's another lie. In fact, all this is a Mysterio illusion. It's kind of insane to break down all the little creativity that went into this fakery. Let's do this one last time for this series. A fake down. Mysterio includes the detail of fake Fury reacting to Hill being an illusion to trick Peter into later trusting fake Fury, thinking he's not part of the illusion. Mysterio projects Peter back in his high school in his past suit, triggering Peter's anxiety over balancing high school with avenging. He punches the wall where he thinks Mysterio is, cracking it, which the VFX artist based on the Truman Show, when Truman being manipulated crashes into a wall that he thought was sky. Mysterio uses Peter's Eiffel Tower MJ plan against him here, tricking him into diving into a shallower drop than he thought it was. And then Peter, as if on a bullet train, zips over to Queens, a threat by Mysterio that their next target could be his home. Peter touches the mirror, gets stuck to it, which the VFX team based on The Matrix, and the Spider-Man clones dogpile on him like Smith on Neo in Matrix Reloaded. They're these massive crumbled statues. These are actually the 4 Avengers who died or retired during the Infinity War Endgame movies. Cap is crumbled on the ground beside Peter. Peter's actually standing on his shield. Black Widow and Vision are still standing. Stark's head is on the ground while his body remains standing with his gauntlet outstretched. Then Peter's at Tony Stark's grave, triggering Peter's survivor's guilt. and then Iron Man zombie crawls toward him. Yikes. Kind of like the legless Ultron sentry or something out of the Evil Dead. And then Peter's stuck inside the snow globe of New York with Avengers Tower. The pile of snow he's on is actually the pile of gravel in the construction site outside. And then behind Fake Fury, the SWAT officers are frozen because they're parts of the illusion still. And then the truth hits Peter like a train, a literal train, which Peter doesn't see coming because earlier when he moved like a bullet train, that was an illusion. This time it's real. He is all messed up. And that disorientation lasts through him seeing Happy.
Happy, is that you? Is it me? Yeah, of course it's me.
Yeah, those vibrant flowers are likely further throwing Peter off. What are we in Midsommar? Everything's colorful. This can't be real. Holland and Holland? What? Flash's Instagram feed shows that his account name is Spidey #1 fan. And if you look at the comments, most of them are bots. This poor guy has to buy his followers. Now, in the suit lab on the jet, include alternate designs, including the Spider Armor Mark 1, the Superior Spider-Man suit, his Homecoming suit, the Iron Spider suit from Infinity War and Endgame, and what looks like the Secret War stealth suit. And then later, he makes his new suit from what looks like the Spider Armor Mark 2 and the Spider Armor Mark 3, I think. Yet notice that he does not add the waste web fluid storage that his past suit had, which leads to him running out of webbing in London.
Oh, great, no webs.
And Peter reaches into the hollow gauntlet, just like Tony did with this kind of tech in Iron Man, reminding Happy of his old boss. So he plays Back in Black by Led Zeppelin, the AC/DC. And just as Happy did to open the slab, he uses his pinky and thumb, making the Spider-Man web slinger gesture. There's another Skrull clue here.
I thought Kree having sleeper cells was top secret information.
Nick.
Yeah, Kree sleeper cells sounds like a concern of someone involved in a Kree Skrull war. One final clue comes later after the battle.
Appearances can be deceiving.
Of course, setting up the post-credit scene reveal in a car tagged H&M 6 2011, Hawkeye and Mockingbird #6 released in 2011, which included a Skrull posing as Fury. My guess is that the real Fury was working with the Skrulls on the Sword space station called the Peak. After increasing his taser web voltage, Peter uses this function to take out the drones from the inside out. And then after his cool flip, he gets hit with a sonic cannon, confirmed to be the same tech from the Stark-designed sonic cannon used on Hulk and equipped on War Machine in Civil War. On the bridge, there's a car tagged M95 XLV, XLV being Roman numerals for 45, for the astonishing Spider-Man #45, released in 1995, which was the debut of She-Venom. And since MJ's running past it, it could be a nod to MJ's future, possibly an infected patient from a symbiote. Now, there's a drone that chases them into the Tower of London. Notice its thermal scanner, TML there, is inactive, explaining why it can't detect their body heat. Meanwhile, Peter uses the bridge sign as a shield and the explosive drone piece, flinging it up at him, similar to Cap in Endgame, holding his shield out while swinging Mjolnir by the strap up at Thanos. Peter rediscovers his tingle. He blindfolds himself to trust his instincts and break through Mysterio's misperception.
Why aren't these drones firing?
You're in the strike zone. The chance of getting hit is...
Fire all the drones now!
Now, he's clearly behind the drones. Like Peter caused them to get hit. Otherwise, he wasn't in their strike zone in that moment. Really? Beck wasn't this far down the hallway. He was actually much closer to Peter within the line of fire. Edith's strike zone warning was a clue that this Beck at the end of the hallway is another projection. And notice how Beck points his glasses at Peter like a gun, his finger around a trigger there. His final words are haunting.
People tend to believe, and nowadays, they'll believe anything.
And Peter never does get literal confirmation that he's dead.
Is this real?
All illusions are down, Peter.
The misperception lives on. Peter kisses MJ beside an upside-down Mercedes tagged TSAM 143. That's for The Amazing Spider-Man issue 143, which featured Peter's first kiss with MJ. The car being inverted could be a nod to that upside-down kiss of Toby and MJ. And I'm pulling my neck. In the final scene, Peter glides through a new atrium constructed into Avengers Tower, which many of us believe could be in the process of being remodeled into the Baxter Building of the Fantastic Four. Actually, as Peter approaches on the lower terrace, there is definitely an orangish blur with a bit of blue in there, which, you know, in my head canon, could be and definitely is Ben Grimm. Or, you know, a Skrull pretending to be him. On the street level, there's a barrier wall that reads, "We are so excited to show you what comes next," with a timeline showing the numbers 1, 2, 3, and what comes next? I think it's 4. 4 likely referring to Phase 4 or the Fantastic Four, hopefully both. J Jonah Jameson shows up, played by J.K. Simmons, as he was in the Raimi movies. This Spider-Verse is getting real interesting. The Daily Bugle is now an InfoWars-style conspiracy show airing Mysterio's doctored footage, framing and outing Peter.
Spider-Man's name is Peter Parker. What the
Calling back Aunt May's final line in Homecoming. Yeah, it's one of the darker endings of the Infinity Saga. Like, sure, Peter overcame Mysterio to regain his tingle and inherit Tony's vision, but misperception as a whole wins the day. It's a reminder that after all this, we still live in a world of false narratives in which privacy is a thing of the past. And so concludes our Infinity Saga rewatch. Thank you so much for joining me for this ride. It's been amazing, eye-opening, content-providing. Actually, stay tuned for my official ranking of all 23 MCU films. Also, some deeper theories for upcoming Marvel films based on the new clues we found during this process. There's been a lot of stuff. And of course, more rewatches coming your way, starting with Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. You can join these watch-alongs on Discord by becoming a patron at patreon.com/newrockstars. Follow me on Instagram at EA Voss, follow New Rockstars, and be sure to subscribe because you are not ready for what comes next.